As we gather on the town common on this Memorial Day, 2022, our thoughts are directed to remembrance of the acts of patriotism and sacrifice of our forefathers and the lives that were ultimately lost in defense of our country. In 1774, when the dark and portentous war clouds of the coming revolution were on the horizon, our patriot ancestors here in Hollis proclaimed a similar sentiment to that in the Declaration of Independence by stating these words: "We will endeavor at all times to maintain our liberties and privileges, both civil and sacred, at the risk of our lives and fortunes." Last year marked the 175th anniversary of the founding of our beloved town of Hollis. In 4 short years, in 2026, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the founding of our nation, the United States of America. Patriots and citizens of our town, their industry and piety and sacrifice are represented by the scenes that surround us and the monuments and structures that we see here. But imagine, if you will, that we're standing on this spot 250 years ago. Known as the Parade at the Meeting House, or the training field where our citizen soldier militia gathered and drilled, there were no monuments, no granite curbing, benches, or flagpole, just a whipping post and the stocks, surrounded by a few modest homes on dirt pathways that radiated out from this center like spokes on a wheel. There was no library building. The church at the time was a small rectangular structure with the churchyard behind it enclosing a few scattered graves. The Reverend Daniel Emerson, Hollis's first minister, built his house in 1744. It proudly stands here on the corner of Cleesby Lane, where he and his wife Hannah raised their 13 children. One of their sons, Deacon Daniel Emerson's house at 5 Broad Street, built in 1768, was nearby, but likely no houses in between. No Monument Square Market, no town hall, and perhaps nothing to the south down Depot Road until you come to the old Worcester House that still stands at the corner of Richardson Road. Along the common here on the south, the Reverend Eli Smith's house had not been built until about 1794. The Colburn house next door wasn't there, nor was the Gould Emerson house on the corner of Main Street, which at the time was significantly known as King Street. There was no engine house, no high school building, no block building, just the 2 substantial Georgian houses. The Cummings house, now 27 Main Street, where both Tory and Patriot siblings split the family apart, and where Patriot Prudence Cummings Wright, famously known as the Sergeant of the Bridge Guard of Pepperell, was born and raised, and number 19 Main Street, the home of the Loyalist Whiting brothers, Benjamin, High Sheriff of Hillsborough County, province of New Hampshire, a reviled Tory who died in exile, and his brother, Captain Leonard Whiting, a commissioned officer under the British Crown, who was imprisoned for a time in Amherst. Every family in town had a story that was woven into the greater events of the time. It was about noontime on the 19th of April, 1775, when Deacon John Boynton, one of the Committee of Observation who lived down the way at 92 Dow Road, came riding along the streets of Hollis at the top of his horse's speed, calling to his townsmen as he passed, "The regulars are coming and killing our men." The regulars were the British foot soldiers, well-trained and well-equipped. Boynton drew rein at the door of Captain Noah Worcester, the house at the corner of Richardson Road, who was chairman of the Committee of Safety. Captain Noah had just risen from his dinner and was standing at his looking glass with his face well lathered in the act of shaving. Captain Worcester, with one side of his face still whitened for the razor, at once dropped that instrument, hurried to the stable, mounted his horse, and in that plight, assisted in spreading the alarm. Other mounted messengers were soon dispatched to the several parts of the town. Early in the afternoon of that same day, word reached the Nevins family in the north part of town. 3 of the Nevins brothers were at work with their crowbars in digging stone for a farm wall at a short distance from their home at the corner of South Merrimack Road and Nevins Road. At the coming in sight of the messenger, they had partially raised from its place a large flat stone embedded in a farm roadway. Seeing the messenger spurring toward them at full speed, one of the brothers put a small boulder under the large stone to keep it in the position to which it had been raised, and all stopped and listened to the message of the horseman. Upon hearing it, leaving the stone as it was in the roadway, with the little boulder under it, they hastened to the house, and all three of them, with their guns and equipments, hurried to the Hollis Common to join their company. In the afternoon of that day, 92 Minutemen met on Hollis Common with muskets and powder horns, each man furnished with 1 pound of powder and 20 bullets. From there, they marched off toward Concord and went into camp at Cambridge. Of the 5 Nevins brothers who served in the war, 3 lost their lives. Phineas was killed at Bunker Hill. William, the spring following, lost his life in the service in New York. And John enlisted for the Canada expedition and was never heard of again by his people. And that brings us back to this Hollis Common today. As a family memorial, the large stone that the Nevins brothers were working on was left in place, supported by the small stone for over 70 years. It was later moved to the Common or Old Training Field, and as you can see, so located to indicate the line of march of the 92 Minutemen who left the town for Lexington that April day. On this boulder, now referred to as the Nevins Stone, has been placed a bronze tablet on which the names of these 92 patriots are listed, together with the following. The Nevins brothers were at work on this stone on their farm April 19, 1775, and left it in this position at the Minutemen's alarm to join their comrades on this common. This stone was dedicated on June 17, 1898. Shortly after the end of the War of the Rebellion, the Civil War, the townspeople desired to erect a monument to honor the Hollis soldiers who had lost their lives in service to their country during that war, and also the wars of 1775 and 1812. To that end, a committee of 9 was appointed to undertake and finance this effort. The result was the Soldiers' Monument, standing here. It is 22.5 feet high and 6 feet square at its base. On the east side are inscribed the names of the 18 soldiers who lost their lives in the rebellion. And on the west side are the words, "In honor of the Hollis soldiers who sacrificed their lives in the wars of 1775 and in 1812. The dedication took place on Decoration Day, May 30th, 1873, 149 years ago today. The graves of the fallen soldiers having been first strewed with flowers by their comrades. We've heard the names of these heroes recited during our Memorial Day exercises for many years. Also here on the Common rests the marker of the founder of Hollis, Peter Powers, which the Anna Keyes Powers chapter of the DAR sponsored and dedicated in 1909. It was originally placed at the location of the Powers family's home site on the hill north of Proctor Hill Road and west of 7 Silver Lake Road. The marker has since been moved twice from the original house site location, finally resting here commemorating Peter and Anna Powers' arrival in Hollis in 1730. Peter Powers and his wife Anna Keyes had 4 sons who served in the Revolutionary War. At one time there were also 2 large cannons placed here on the Common. Each was dedicated and named after a Hollis officer who perished in the War of the Rebellion, namely Lieutenant John Worcester and Lieutenant Charles Farley. The stories and sacrifice of these 2 men will be told another time. The cannons that honored their service were donated to the scrap drive during the Second World War. Photos of the cannons can be seen at our table over here if you'd like to look at photographs. This concludes a look back at some of the stories of our town and the patriots who gave their all. May we here today continue to be inspired by their courage and be blessed by the legacy of their sacrifice. And may God continue to bless the United States of America.